Discover the incredible 3 a.m. moment that changed a billionaire's life, the heartwarming truth revealed. The phone's shrill ring shattered the stillness of the early morning. Jake Thompson jolted awake, heart racing, and squinted at the clock. 3 a.m. He could hear the wind rustling outside as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He knew Mr. Clemens needed help. The war veteran had always been a steady presence in their tight-knit community, a man of honor with wisdom rooted deep in the soil of the small Midwestern town they called home. Jake let out a heavy sigh, but even the exhaustion couldn't dampen his instinct to help. Throwing on a jacket and kicking off the cold that clung to his skin, he trudged out into the darkness. The chill felt harsh, but he welcomed it, refreshing, like a wake-up call from the dreams he often yearned for but couldn't quite grasp. Moments later, standing beside Mr. Clemens' old truck, Jake felt the comforting weight of his tools in his hands, a familiar solace amid the loud hum of the night. "I knew you'd come, Jake," Mr. Clemens said, gratitude etching deep lines on his face. As Jake worked, he could feel the older man's eyes tracing his movements with the pride of a father witnessing his son step into manhood. It felt good to be needed, to know that amid the swirling currents of their economically struggling town, he was a steady ship in these turbulent waters. But what came next took even his sharp mind by surprise. Mr. Clemens, with his weathered hands and stories that could warm even the coldest night, casually dropped the name of a billionaire who was buying up tracts of land in town, Robert Harrington. The thought of entrepreneurship met the dream of intervention, and Jake's stomach twisted with expectation. "Robert wants to revitalize this place," Mr. Clemens said, eyes sparkling, "and I told him about you. You've got the grit and heart this town needs." Jake felt an electric thrill at the idea. That glimmer of hope shone bright. Could this really be the way to pull his family from the shadows of financial despair? He glanced back towards the flickering porch light of his own home, where Maria and their kids, Eli and Sophie, slept peacefully. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can, drop a like. It really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The truth nagged at him like a pebble in his shoe. The project had the potential for positive change, but as he stepped deeper into Harrington's world, the shiny veneer hid something darker. A subtle disdain echoed in the glances exchanged behind his back. Despite his struggles, Jake had always dreamed of something better for his family, but at what price? In his heart, he knew that choosing wealth may mean letting go of the community ties that defined him. Yet the draw was intoxicating. He was standing on the precipice of something vast and uncertain. Just as things began to shape into a whirlwind of excitement and dread, the rumble of an engine broke through the night, and a shadow loomed on the horizon. Would this arrival solidify his hopes, or shake the very foundations of everything he believed in? The engine's hum grew louder as a sleek, dark SUV crept into view, its headlights cutting through the night like blades. Jake's pulse quickened, uncertainty flooding his mind. This was either a blessing or a curse on the verge of being revealed. He exchanged a glance with Mr. Clemens, whose brow furrowed with concern. As the wheels crunched over gravel, the vehicle came to a halt, and the door swung open. A tall, confident figure stepped out, dressed in an expensive suit that contrasted sharply with the frayed edges of Mr. Clemens' faded work clothes. Robert Harrington himself, radiant and poised, approached them, a broad smile plastered across his face. "Mr. Thompson," Harrington's voice boomed through the night, rich and persuasive. "I've heard so much about you." He extended a hand, and Jake took it, feeling the firm grip of someone who had always been in control. Harrington wasted no time. "We've got some exciting plans in store for this town, and I need someone like you, someone with true heart, to help bring this vision to life." The way he spoke made Jake's gut twist, the sincerity in his words raising questions. How could anyone so polished possibly understand the soul of their struggling community? "Harrington, it's an honor," Jake started, but trailed off as the billionaire continued, his enthusiasm unyielding. "I want real change, Jake. You know the land, the people, and you have a sense of integrity that's hard to find these days. Imagine revitalizing this town. New businesses, fresh faces, we could bring growth." The excitement in Harrington's eyes was infectious, but Jake couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Would the town's essence get swallowed up in the name of progress? He imagined the laughter of his children playing in the park, families gathering at the diner, a community enriched by its shared struggles. But the flicker of hope was there, dancing in the back of his mind. What if this was the opportunity he'd been waiting for, the answer to prayers whispered through sleepless nights? "Robert, I appreciate your vision, but what do you truly want from us, from this town?" Jake's voice steadied, revealing an underlying strength he didn't know he possessed. Harrington's expression shifted, eyes narrowing just slightly, as if Jake had threatened the delicate formation of his plan. What I want, Jake, is simple. Partnership. You lead the way, your community trusts you, and together we can achieve greatness. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on Jake's shoulders. His gaze flickered back to Mr. Clemens, whose wary expression mirrored his own inner conflict. As he stood at the crossroads of ambition and loyalty, a flicker of doubt pulled at his heart. Would aligning with someone like Harrington mean severing ties with the roots that kept him grounded? Before he could voice his fears, Harrington leaned closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. You do realize, Jake, that the future belongs to those willing to take bold steps, don't you? A silence enveloped them, thick with possibility and tension. Jake's mind raced. Was it worth risking everything to pursue this daunting dream? He felt like he was walking the edge of a tightrope. One misstep could lead to losing everything he loved. With a deep breath, he prepared to respond, unaware that the choices he made next could change everything, for better or worse. Just then, the sky above rumbled ominously, foreshadowing that their agreement could bring more than just change. Let's talk, he finally said, heart pounding, as he stepped deeper into the unknown, knowing this would be a decision that would define him forever. Would he find strength in this collaboration, or would it tear apart the fabric of his community? The dawn was breaking, but darkness still lingered. As they moved towards the SUV, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line, one that couldn't be uncrossed. What awaited him on the other side? The interior of the SUV was plush, the scent of leather thickening the air as Jake slid into the back seat beside Harrington. Mr. Clemens hesitated, lingering near the open door, his expression one of deep uncertainty. Come on in, Mr. Clemens, Harrington beckoned, his tone dripping with charm. I want to hear your thoughts, too. Reluctantly, Clemens joined them, the door shutting with a finality that echoed in Jake's chest. As the engine roared to life, the vehicle glided onto the winding road away from the park and the familiar streets of his childhood. So, Jake, let's talk numbers, Harrington began, flipping open a sleek tablet that mirrored his ambitious demeanor. The screen lit up, revealing colorful graphs and bright pictures of buildings, shiny new businesses ready to spring up like weeds in spring. It's simple economics. We revitalize the downtown area, create jobs, and bring in tourists. You know as well as I do, this town needs a spark. A knot formed in Jake's stomach. The idea of tourists sipping coffee at a cafe that once held the laughter of his friends felt wrong. But at what cost? He finally said, hoping to cut through the smooth surface of Harrington's plans. Harrington smiled, tilting his head. You're thinking small, my friend. Think about the bigger picture. New stores mean new life, more opportunities. We can make this town a regional hub. Clemens leaned forward, voice thick with caution. But what about the people here? The families, their stories. It's not just about profits. Yes, I get it. Harrington waved a hand dismissively. But we can't let sentimentality drown progress. Trust me, these families will thrive. They just need a chance to evolve. The words stung like ice. How could Harrington separate the people from the very heart of the town? Jake felt a rush of anger, but it battled with the thin thread of hope that had wrapped around him since they'd started this discussion. Wasn't it worth a try? What about the diner? Jake blurted out, feeling a surge of protectiveness. It's where our community gathers. Are you going to turn that into a chain restaurant? Harrington paused, and then laughed lightly, as if Jake had just made a poor joke. Not at all. We'll keep the diner, for now at least. It's a local institution, right? A stepping stone. Plus, think of the improvements. Better food, outdoor seating. We make it a landmark, an attraction. People will love it. The weight of Harrington's vision pressed down on him, heavy and oppressive. Jake's heart raced, bits of the struggle playing in his mind like an old film reel. He thought of his mother's hands kneading dough in that very diner kitchen, the scent of fresh pie drifting out onto the streets where he and Clemens had played. Could it all vanish? Look, Robert, Jake interjected, a sudden determination rising in his chest. Progress means nothing if it comes at the expense of our community. You can't take away the heart of this place. Harrington leaned back, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. You've got fire, Jake. That's what I need. This can be a partnership, truly, but we need to be on the same page. There's no room for hesitation in this game. Silence fell in the SUV, thick and electric. Jake could feel the weight of his next move. The warmth of change battled against the chill of loss. In that moment, clarity struck him like a bolt of lightning. Then let's not just talk about ideas. Let's talk about how to do this without tearing our community apart. A smile crept across Harrington's face, but as he leaned in closer to detail his broad vision, Jake noticed something shift. The air outside cooled, and for an instant, a fleeting shadow passed over Harrington's expression. Just then, the SUV came to an abrupt stop. Outside, the world seemed engulfed in fog, an eerie stillness wrapping around them. Jake felt a chill, a sense of foreboding that wove through the fabric of their conversation. "What just happened?" he muttered, glancing at Mr. Clemens. A low rumbling filled the air, but this time it wasn't the SUV's engine. It was a sound unlike anything Jake had ever heard, deep, resonating, and terrifying. As dread unfurled within him, Harrington's demeanor changed too. "They're here," he whispered, his voice now laced with urgency. Jake's heart raced in wild beats, uncertainty crashing over him like a wave. Faces turned pale in the dark fog. What kind of partnership had he signed up for? What awaited them in the shadows? And then it hit him. The night was far from over, and the true test was only just beginning. The SUV's engine continued to hum, but the atmosphere had shifted from one of discussion to impending threat. The fog swirled outside like a living thing, wrapping around them, tightening its grip. Jake felt an icy chill creeping over his skin, as if the cold was seeping in through the windows. "What do you mean they're here?" Jake demanded, his voice steadier than he felt. Harrington's wide eyes betrayed a fear that wasn't in sync with his usual suave demeanor. Clemens shifted uneasily beside him, glancing at Harrington as if searching for reassurance. "Robert, what's going on?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Harrington leaned forward, his intensity suddenly sharp, as if he were peeling away layers of charm to reveal something far more genuine beneath. "We need to stay calm," he said, but the urgency in his tone hinted at danger lurking just outside the mist. "I think the deal has attracted more than just interest." "What kind of interest?" Jake pressed, the knot in his stomach tightening. Before Harrington could answer, a shadow moved in the fog, silent and colossal. Jake's breath hitched, and in that moment, all rational thoughts fled his mind. They were trapped in a metal cocoon, a thin barrier between them and the unknown. The shadow materialized into 3 figures, tall and cloaked, their faces obscured by the darkness. They approached the SUV, their movements slow and deliberate. Heart pounding, Jake squinted against the dim light outside, trying to glimpse any sign of their intentions. Harrington reached down to the console, fumbling for something beneath his seat. "Whatever happens, do not open that door," he ordered, his voice strained, a crack of urgency seeping through his usual coolness. Jake turned to Clemens, who looked like a deer caught in headlights. "We need to get out of here," he insisted, panic rising within him. "Open that door and we'll be revealing ourselves," Harrington warned, cutting through their fear with a fierce eye. "Trust me." As the figures closed in, Jake's instincts kicked in. "We can't just sit here," he said, searching for a way to keep both himself and Clemens safe. What connection did Harrington have with these people? Why did this feel so eerily orchestrated? Suddenly, a knock resonated against the glass, knocking the breath from Jake's lungs. The shadowy figure gestured for them to roll down the window. "What do they want?" Clemens whispered, his fear mirrored in Jake's racing heart. "They want information," Harrington replied, his jaw taut. "Or maybe something more." Jake's eyes flicked between Harrington and the figures, unable to shake the feeling that this was a trap, a play in a script much darker than he could comprehend. "We can't betray this town for whatever deal you've made," Jake said, determination seeping into his tone. "That's what they're really after, isn't it?" Harrington's gaze broke away from the shadowy figures for just a moment. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he cautioned, but Jake was no longer listening. Fear morphed into resolve. The one outside the window leaned closer, the low rumble in his voice drifting in through the gap. "Jake Nelson," he called, an unsettling familiarity in his tone. "We've been expecting you." Jake's heart raced, the pit of his stomach dropping. "Expecting me," he echoed, the words tasting bitter. What game had he unwittingly stepped into? Clemens glanced nervously between the two men, eyes wide. What does he want? Before Jake could answer, Harrington lifted his hand as if to calm him. Wait, he cautioned, his expression changing from tense to contemplative. This is where it truly begins. An electric charge filled the air, a palpable tension that made Jake's skin prickle. Just as he gathered his thoughts, ready to act, the figures stepped back, revealing small devices tucked into their hands, shimmering under the SUV lights. Come with us if you want to make a real impact, or stay here and watch it all unfold from the sidelines, the figure hissed, as the fog enveloped them once again. Jake glanced at Harrington, who was staring straight ahead, the conflict evident on his face. What choice would he make? Would they take the plunge into whatever darkness awaited, or would they cling to the hope of preserving what little remained of their home? As Jake opened his mouth to speak, the world outside felt like it was tilting dangerously. Had he entered a twilight zone of choices that could shatter his community forever? And right then, amidst the pressing insanity of the moment, everything hung in balance, waiting for that next decision to tip the scales. Would they embrace the unknown, or try to retrace their steps back to safety? The tension inside the SUV hung thick like the fog cocooning them. Jake's heart thundered in his chest, thrumming a desperate rhythm against the surreal nature of the moment. The cloaked figures outside shifted, their intentions challenging Jake's grip on reality. He felt pulled between the weight of Harrington's secrecy and the chilling allure of the unknown. Jake, Clemens whimpered, his voice cracking, breaking Jake's focus. What do we do? The question hung heavy, pooling in the space between their rapid breaths. Jake shot a glance at Harrington, his mentor's gaze now a blend of determination and trepidation. This is bigger than us, Clemens. We need to decide, now. Each word felt like an anchor, pulling them back from panic. The towering figure outside rapped again on the glass, creating a finality that resonated through the tense air. Make your choice, Jake, he beckoned, voice low and hypnotic. Will you be a part of change? It was as if time had folded in on itself, each moment stretching painfully long. Jake thought of the town they'd lived in, the memories etched into every street corner, the community tied by shared struggles and triumphs. Every face he knew seemed to flicker in his mind, his childhood friends, neighbors he'd grown up with, the elderly couple from down the lane who had always offered him warm cookies and advice. His throat tightened. What kind of change? Why are you expecting me? The figure leaned closer, the illumination from the SUV capturing the glimmer of steel beneath the cloak. You've seen things, Jake. Things you're aware of, and things that hide beneath the surface. We need someone like you to help us. Jake clenched his fists, wrestling with the sudden mix of fear and curiosity. Help you with what? Selling out our town? No, helping to save it. The cloaked figure straightened, a hint of urgency coloring his tone. The time for hiding is over. The moment has arrived for action, not just words. Join us, and you can lead. Clemens turned to Jake, eyes wide. Do you trust him? Trust? A sneer played at the corners of Jake's mind. It felt like surrendering to the unknown rather than standing resolutely for what he believed in. Yet the man outside spoke with fire, his voice a siren's call that gnawed at Jake's skepticism. I don't know if I can trust you, Jake murmured finally, his heart racing as doubt wove through determination. You already do, the figure countered, leaning against the window, shadows pooling around him. Deep down, you know you want more than this town is offering. We can bring that to the surface. The fog thickened, wrapping the SUV in oppressive silence, punctuated only by their breathing. Jake felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Here stood a point of no return, a crossroads diverging wildly in front of him. With a labored breath, he contemplated the words ringing with a resonant truth. This was an opportunity, one that could dismantle everything he knew, but also everything he wanted to change. Harrington, is this really what we should do? He asked, searching his mentor's face for a hint of reassurance. Harrington was already staring ahead, caught in the deep-shaded embrace of his own thoughts. "You need to decide, Jake," he finally replied, voice strained. "This might be our only chance to grab hold of the reins." "Think about the town," Jake urged quietly. "If we do this, if we leave, what becomes of everyone?" The cloaked figure leaned in even closer, the intensity of his gaze a visceral thing. "If you don't act, there won't be anything left to save. It's now or never." Jake's pulse quickened at the gravity of the words, each syllable sparking a fire of both hope and dread within him. What if he walked away? What would that cost? But in tethering himself to this unknown, what could he lose? The decision loomed like a storm cloud overhead, heavy and full of potential. The lines of loyalty and ambition blurred in the fog outside, leaving Jake grasping for any semblance of clarity. Suddenly clear himself, he exhaled. "I'm tired of waiting," he said. "I'm ready to find out." Before he could finish his thought, the entire SUV jolted, the engine sputtering in a fit of uncertainty. The figures outside darted back, their cloaks swirling with a newfound urgency. A flash of metal glinted in the darkness, highlighting the sense of danger that wrapped around them. "Get ready," Harrington urged, panic replacing any previous calm in his voice. And just like that, the veil of safety shattered, plunging them into whatever darkness lay ahead. It was too late for second thoughts, caught in a wake of choices made. But Jake couldn't shake one possibility as they prepared for the unknown. Had they just stepped into salvation or oblivion? As the first lights of dawn flickered teasingly in the distance, he wondered what tomorrow would really bring. "Are to enslave us," Clemens muttered, awe clinging to every word as he hoisted himself up, now crouching as low as he could. The tension rocketed around them, turning their throats dry with anticipation. As if sensing the shift in energy, the towering figure in the cloak stepped forward again, this time almost tenderly, his gloved hand reaching out. "You made your choice. Now it's time for our actions." The words held gravity that sunk into Jake's bones. He didn't want to believe what was unfolding. Was this really about salvation, or something much darker? "Follow me," the cloaked figure urged, turning swiftly. "Stay close." He moved deeper into the fog, his presence a guide toward the unknown. Should they trust him? Jake caught Harrington's glance, unsure of the trustworthiness of their new ally. But there was urgency in Harrington's fierce resolve that softened his doubts. The moment to decide was now, again. With one last glance at the SUV, their only remnant of comfort, Jake exhaled deeply and stepped forward. "Let's go," he whispered to Clemens, who nodded, their shared fear anchoring them. As they moved, shadows danced along narrow pathways obscured by the rising fog. The anticipation was suffocating. Each stride felt monumental, lifting them closer to whatever awaited. All those faces from home, each one a reminder of the life they were unwilling to sacrifice. Suddenly, a voice boomed from behind them, breaking through the heavy silence like thunderclaps in a storm. "You think you can just walk away? You don't know what you're getting into." Jake spun around, panic sparking in his chest, flames of uncertainty ignited in his thoughts. This was more than a choice now. It was a leap into a complex web they couldn't fully see. All at once, the figures behind moved forward, revealing glints of metal, shiny and threatening. "Run!" Harrington shouted, propelling them further into the fog. They fled through the haze, hearts pounding, every instinct screaming at them to survive. But Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the real game was just beginning. Was it salvation they were chasing, or the shadows of something they couldn't yet comprehend? As the mist enveloped them, Jake felt it, the foreshadowing of something greater than he ever imagined possible, hanging just ahead. "Where are we going?" Clemens gasped, as they pounded through the thickening fog. "To the truth," the cloaked figure replied, his voice unwavering and steady, offering ready confidence, "and to the choices that will make us whole." But with each step, Jake wondered, would the truth give them power or shatter what little hope they had left?
Jake kept his head low, the chill of the air wrapping around him like a shroud. The cloaked figure led them into a narrow pathway, flanked by old trees that twisted in the mist, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The shadows felt alive, shifting with every quickened breath he took. "Clemens," Jake whispered, "stay close."
His friend's presence was a small comfort in the thick fog, a tether to the familiar in this chaotic swirl of uncertainty. Where are we even going?" Clemens asked, his voice a mix of fear and determination. Sweat collected on his brow, a stark contrast to the damp chill of the air. "To the truth," the cloaked figure repeated, pausing for a brief moment as a low growl sounded from the mist behind them. "And, quite possibly, to allies." A wisp of a smile appeared beneath the shadows of his hood. With the pounding of footsteps behind them, they pressed on, driven by the urgency of escape. Jake's heart raced in his chest, a wild drumbeat of anxiety and adrenaline. He could hear the erratic whispers in the trees, as if the world itself was alive and warning them. "Do you really think they'll follow us?" Clemens panted, throwing glances over his shoulder. "They want something from us," Harrington said firmly, his voice cutting through the panic. "They won't give up easily." At that moment, a bright flash broke through the fog, illuminating the path ahead for just a second. It flickered like a heartbeat, a wink from the unknown. Jake felt a surge of hope, even amidst the fear that wrapped around him like a vice. He pushed himself harder, as if the intangible hope could somehow carry them to safety. The cloaked figure led them into a clearing where the mist began to thin, revealing a rusted fence surrounding a dilapidated building. It stood silhouetted against the dim beginnings of dawn, the first rays of sunlight breaking through. There was something haunting yet strangely inviting about it. "Inside, now!" The urgency in the figure's voice shattered the lingering tension like glass. They rushed through the fence and into the old building, the door creaking ominously as they stumbled in. The interior was dark, save for slivers of light filtering through the shattered windows. Dust motes swirled in the air like tiny stars caught in a luminous web. As they caught their breath, Jake glanced at Harrington. "What's the plan now?" "Steal a moment to think. We gather information," Harrington replied, scanning the room. "We prepare." The cloaked figure stepped closer, his voice a low murmur. "You've made the choice to seek the truth. It cannot be undone now. There is no going back." A chill ran down Jake's spine. And what if that truth is worse than the lies? The figure paused, an unreadable expression hidden beneath the cloak. "Then we fight, and we survive. Because that is our only option." The weight of those words settled over the group, thick and heavy. A sense of resilience sparked in Jake's heart, like a flame kindled against the darkness. "Well," Clemens said, breaking the silence that followed, "whatever is out there, let's face it together." A nod from Harrington and the cloaked figure seemed to solidify the promise of unity, but unease loomed like a specter, whispering doubts in the back of Jake's mind. They were not free from the darkness yet. Just then, the distant sound of footsteps echoed outside, growing louder and more frantic. Panic erupted in the room again, their sanctuary threatened. "Prepare yourselves," the cloaked figure commanded. "This is just the beginning." Jake's pulse quickened as the door rattled with force. Was this the moment of truth they sought, or the beginning of something far worse? Jake steadied himself, recognizing the fear masquerading as anticipation. Would they find allies in their fight, or would this encounter bring about their ultimate downfall? With the door poised to burst open, Jake felt the undeniable pressure of choices weighted against the unknown, coiling tightly around him. What came next could change everything, or end it all. The door splintered with a violent crash. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the hinges screamed in protest. Jake instinctively jumped back, eyes wide with terror. The cloaked figure raised a hand, signaling for calm. "Hold your ground," he commanded, but the urgency in his voice betrayed a hint of fear. Clemens clutched Jake's arm tightly, his knuckles white. "What do we do? They'll be in here any second." "Stay together," Harrington ordered. His gaze flickered toward the door, preparing for whatever would come next. The sturdy, rotting wood of the old door quivered with each impact, revealing tiny splinters that glimmered in the pale light. A new wave of footsteps thundered outside, accompanied by a deeper growl that made the hairs on Jake's neck stand on end. It sounded primal, echoing with a threatening force. Panic churned within him, mingling with the flicker of hope that had yet to be extinguished. "Which way?" Jake's voice trembled slightly,
eyes darting around the dim-lit room, taking in the fragmented remnants of furniture around them. There was an old staircase leading upward. It seemed the only option left. Upstairs now, the cloaked figure insisted, already moving toward the staircase, as if pressed by a ghostly pulse. Jake shared a quick look with Clemens and Harrington, who nodded in unison. They ran after the figure, pounding their feet against the creaking steps. As they climbed, the air thick with fear and dust, shadows flitted along the walls, dancing like reminders of what hunted them below. Their breath came in ragged gasps, a reminder that every second counted. Reaching the top floor, they burst into a large, almost empty room. The walls were adorned with peeling paperwall, remnants of a once lively home. A tattered couch sat against one wall, its fabric faded and torn. A single window offered a view of the encroaching dawn, but the rolling mist still clung ominously to the ground below. "Is this it?" Clemens panted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are we safe here?" "For now," the cloaked figure said, scanning the room. His voice was steadier, but Jake could see the tension in his shoulders. "But we must prepare. They will come."
Jake's instincts kicked in, pulling together the threads of clarity amidst the chaos. "What do we need to do?" Harrington nodded, now assessing their surroundings. "We need to barricade this door. If they find us, it's over. We can't let them through." Together, they hurried to block the door with anything they could find: an old coffee table, a chair, even an upright suitcase. Each piece they shoved into place was like a stitch in a safety net, a fragile assurance that at least for this moment, they could breathe. As they stepped back for a moment to catch their breath, the sound of pounding footsteps stopped suddenly. A silence enveloped them, heavy as a winter fog. It was disconcerting, like pausing in the eye of a storm. "Do you think they're waiting?" Clemens asked, peering cautiously around the door. "They might be regrouping," the cloaked figure replied, his head tilting slightly. "They are clever." Jake's heart raced. "What do you mean by clever?" "Not just brute force. They have tactics." The figure's voice lowered. "And they have something very powerful they want from you both." "What is it?" Harrington pressed forward, eyes narrowed in determination. The cloaked figure hesitated, uncertainty flickering across his features. "If I tell you, it could change everything, or lead to your downfall." A chill went through Jake. Would knowing this truth help them or shatter their already fragile hope? The decision loomed heavy. Would they risk unearthing secrets that could endanger them more, or hold on to the darkness and hope for escape? Before anyone could respond, the door shuddered violently again, sending splinters flying. Panic surged through Jake. "They're going to break through!" Just then, a sharp, familiar voice rang out from the other side, calling out urgently. "Jake, Clemens, it's me, Alex, open up!" Jake froze, confusion mingling with disbelief. Could it really be Alex, a friend from a world far removed from their nightmarish reality? The rogue whispers of doubt curled at the edges of his mind, tightening like a vice. Did they dare hope again, or was this just another trick, another layer to the web of lies that had ensnared them? With the door crashing against the weight of whatever was behind it, the question loomed larger than ever. Who could be trusted in this new nightmare? Jake's pulse raced. The voice on the other side felt like a lifeline tossed into their chaos, yet doubt gnawed at him. "Alex?" he called out, his voice shaky but louder this time. The pounding at the door subsided slightly, replaced by the sound of hurried footsteps, as if Alex was pressing against the splintered wood. "Jake, I swear it's me. You have to let me in." The urgency in Alex's voice was palpable, a frantic plea that pulled at Jake's heart. Could he trust it? Could he trust Alex in a world veiled in shadows? Clemens's grip tightened on Jake's arm. "What are you thinking? It could be a trap. What if it's not?" Harrington interjected, his gaze darting back and forth between Clemens and Jake. "What if Alex is here to help us? We need to know. We can't just leave them out there." "Open the door!" Jake shouted again, the sound echoing in the silence of the room. His mind raced with memories of their adventures together, the laughter, and those carefree moments that felt like a lifetime ago. Who else would risk everything for him and Clemens? "Jake!" Alex's voice broke, and it sent an icy dagger of fear through Jake's gut. "Please, just trust me." In a moment of impulse, Jake rushed forward, heart hammering in his chest. He looked back at the cloaked figure. "We can't keep waiting. If it's a trap, we can handle it together." The dark figure swept an arm out, a gesture that seemed to question everything they had discussed. "You don't know what you're inviting into this room." But instinct overcame caution. Jake gripped the handle and turned it slowly, glancing back at Clemens and Harrington. They held breaths drawn tight with fear. The door creaked open just enough for Alex's worried face to slip through the gap. Thank God, he gasped, his expression a mix of relief and urgency. They're coming for you. Please, I know a way out. Before Jake could respond, the weight of chaos crashed down upon them again. The door bucked under a powerful force. They didn't have time to think. Get in, Harrington urged, raising his arm protectively, as if he could shield them from unseen threats. Jake stepped aside, watching as Alex rushed into the room, his once determined expression now clouded with dire realization. But no sooner had Alex joined them than the door shuddered once more, splinters of wood flying as the figure at the door shoved its weight against it again. A second later, it burst open, the cold dawn rushing in like a tidal wave of dread. Shapes emerged from the mist, figures draped in darker cloaks than the one who had led them here. Their eyes gleamed with a predatory light, and their growls resonated in a chilling chorus, deep and hungry. Jake's heart dropped. What do we do? He cried, panic surging through him as he sought Alex's gaze. He needed to know if they truly stood a chance. Stand back, Alex shouted, pulling out a strange artifact from under his cloak, a glinting amulet that sparkled like crushed stars. This is what they want. We can fight them if we use it right. The cloaked figure stammered, eyes darting back and forth between the newcomers and the advancing shadows. You should not have brought that. It's dangerous. But there was no time to argue. The shadows surged forward. The room felt smaller, trapped by the clashing forces of hope and gloom. What does it do? Harrington yelled, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Just trust me, Alex shouted back, clutching the amulet tightly. In that moment, they didn't just face the monsters outside. They faced their own fears, the very limits of what they thought was possible.
As Alex raised the amulet, the air around them began to shimmer with an energy Jake had never felt before. With the shadows closing in, the choice was clear. Either embrace the unknown or surrender to the encroaching darkness. And then, in a heartbeat, Jake knew this wouldn't just change their lives. It might redefine everything they ever believed about themselves. As the echoes of the past and the weight of the present collided, the question remained, could they harness the power of the unknown to fight back, or would the shadows take them all? The room pulsed with tension as shadows encroached, heartbeat hammering in Jake's chest. The cloaked figures loomed, their presence a reminder of everything he feared. Yet here stood Alex, clutching the shimmering amulet, a beacon of hope amid uncertainty. Now, Jake shouted, instinctively reaching for Clemens and Harrington, anchoring them in shared resolve. With courage bubbling within, Alex thrust the amulet toward the dark figures, and in an instant, a radiant light erupted from it. It burst like fireworks, illuminating the room and casting glowing shadows that danced on the walls. Dazzling sparkles filled the air, while the sinister figures hesitated, the brightness battling their advancing gloom. Keep the light steady, Harrington yelled, voice filled with authority. The shining art captured the attention of the cloaked figures, their shadows flickering like frightened animals in the night. Jake felt a surge of energy course through him, igniting every ounce of bravery he had thought he'd lost. "We're not backing down," he exclaimed, rallying alongside Alex. The shadows shrieked, their forms twisting and recoiling from the brilliance before them. Each cry echoed through the room, reverberating with the pain of 1,000 lost souls. "Clemens, we need to create a barrier with this light," Jake instructed, positioning himself beside Alex, their shoulders touching, grounding each other. The amulet glowed fiercely, casting warmth that felt like home, the light of their community, the love for their families, everything that still mattered in this chaotic world. Without hesitation, Clemens dashed toward the door, grabbing furniture to stack in a barricade, while the shadows thundered anxiously outside, clawing at the walls. "I hope this holds," he shouted over the noise. But even as they worked, the cloaked figures began to regroup, their resolve growing as they pressed forward into the effulgence. "You can't stop what's already begun," one hissed, its voice a rasp like nails against chalkboards. "Watch us," Jake shouted defiantly, channeling every hope and prayer he'd ever whispered into the dark, pouring that energy into Alex's amulet. Vibrations of power thrummed in the stale air, buzzing with more than magic.
It resonated with determination, unity, and the love that bound them. Suddenly, the energy released in a blinding beam, drawing all their resolve into a singular force aimed outward.
The light burst forward, a shockwave of brilliance erupting from the gem and crashing against the shadows. For a fleeting moment, everything felt suspended in time. Jake's heart thudded in rhythm with the blinding surge of light, illuminating the old, dusty corners of the room and beyond. Then it connected with the figures, bursting into a sea of brilliant light. Their cries morphed into howls, their cloaks fluttering like leaves caught in a storm, as they dissolved into wisps of darkness, swallowed by the radiance. Just like that, it was over. Silence reigned. Jake blinked as the last remnants of the dark figures dissipated into the morning air, leaving only echoes of their haunting presence behind. The room felt impossibly bright and warm now, the shadows no longer a threat. They were safe. Did we really do that? Clemens stammered, disbelief etching his features. Alex held the amulet aloft, now shimmering quietly in the aftermath. I think we did. We can create our own light, he answered, breath coming in ragged gasps of relief. Harrington edged closer, the fierce stance of authority softening into admiration. You've all stepped into something greater than we ever imagined. This power, it's not just a tool, it's a reminder of what we can achieve when united. Jake felt the weight of that sentiment settle deep within him, igniting an ember of realization. In that moment, he understood the price of transformation was never about wealth or status. It was about standing together, resilient against darkness. Tears of joy pricked his eyes, and he shared quiet smiles with Clemens and Alex, each reflecting hope, strength, and unwavering camaraderie. There was still much to be done, many battles to face, and a community to rebuild. But now, they were ready. As they stepped outside together, a flood of dawn broke across the horizon, illuminating their path forward. Birds chirped, and a golden warmth enveloped them, a poignant reminder that even in the darkest times, light would always return, a testament to the bonds they'd forged through fire. Jake took a deep breath, filled with gratitude and renewed purpose. Together, always, he murmured, feeling the strength of his words resonate through the shifting hair. It was here, in this moment of rebirth, they found not just survival, but a future. And as they left the shadows behind, they walked into the dawn, together. Now it's your moment to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread the light of these stories. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the power of support. Let's build this community together.